feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks and coming at you Saturday morning. It's December 14th. And with the Wolves kind of having a weird week off due to the NBA Cup, we moved the Friday episode with Kyle this week to today, Saturday morning, because we wanted to be able to discuss this Wolves-Lakers game from Friday night, a 97-87 win for the Wolves. It's the fifth time in the last 6 games that the Wolves have held their opponent under 100 points, but also the 10th straight game that the Wolves themselves have scored under 110 points. Which is just getting a little last season-y, I guess, if you want to take that in a positive way. I think it should be. I've got Kyle Theige here to get into that all with me. What's up, Kyle?
I think this is our second straight Saturday pod.
Yeah, we both kind of sound like it right now.
Yeah, I feel like it. Coming off of a second straight Saturday pod, second straight Jaden McDaniels big Friday night, Saturday morning recap pod. So I'm excited, glad to be back. And it's been kind of fun to, I know we haven't talked a lot on the mics, but kind of slowly see what you just said. The old Timberwolves of last year, kind of figuring it out, right? Defense, best defense in the league over the last 10 games, and then the offense is struggling. So Wolves are officially back. And I think there's some really interesting things to talk about last night and this past week.
Yeah, flaws and all, right? And you know, you take the flaw. How many games did the Wolves win last year? 56, 57?
57, I think.
57? Yeah. You take the flaws of a 57 win team. I think like that's the question with this defense. We've been kind of like circling this point, right? Of like, okay, it's kind of feeling like the defense of a season ago, which is awesome. Obviously, you need that. Mm-hmm. But is that enough, right? Can an elite defense with wherever this offense is at kind of get you to where you need to be? And I think there's different answers to that. But what we should focus on is recently. And in the last 2 weeks, the Wolves are 5-1 in those 6 games. That is from after Ant, called out the team for being internally soft and front runners and all that. That was 6 games ago. They are 5-1 in that time. And these rankings, man, I know I sent them to you, are crazy. First defensively, like that in and of itself isn't crazy, but they're first in defensive rating. Their defensive rating in those 2 weeks, which is like a small sample, but not like that small, 6 games. Mm-hmm. Their defensive rating is 93.2, which is 0.932 points per possession. However you want to think about that like a 46.6% 2-point shot, right? The next best defensive rating in the NBA in these 2 weeks is 106.6. So that's a 53.3% 2-point shot. Like that is a significant difference, even within small sample sizes of 2 weeks. You don't see that big of a differential. When you just kind of look at the rankings there overall. So this is in Wolves games, teams are scoring significantly less points. That is a real thing. We can point to back-to-backs, you can point to other stuff, and those are maybe some factors about why that gap is as big as it is. But they've pretty clearly, over the last 2 weeks, 6 games, I think even if you spin it back to like 10, 12 games, they still are the number 1 defense in the league in that time. The other side of the floor, though, that's the difference. They're 24th offensively in the last 2 weeks, these last 6 games. Now, that doesn't sound good, but if you take the 2 and you do the net of them, that's the best net rating in the league over that course of time. It's just an interesting proposition, right, Kyle, of like, is this okay? Because one side of the floor is poor, one side of the floor is elite. Rudy Gobert was asked about that after the game. I'm going to get his we'll play that first, and then I want to get your take on it.
I mean, if we get more wins and less L's, it's a good trade-off. I'll take it. Might be a little uglier to watch, but at the end of the day, that's who we are. And offensively, we know that it's always a work. I mean, it's always going to be a work in progress, but we understand that when we compete defensively and when we focus on defense, we get a chance to win every night. And when we make shots and we play a little better offensively, we probably win by 20. But even when we don't, as long as we don't turn the ball over too much, I think we get in position to win every night.
So, Kyle, like how comfortable or uncomfortable is this? You know, just watching it every night. Like, it's working, but is it a comfortable working to you? What is your feeling on this thing?
I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, because last year I was like, I think it's more fun to follow and cover and cheer for a team that just shuts off what you do best rather than just tries to outscore you. You know, like the 100 to 40, 130 basketball games are just not really for me. And I don't think they're for a lot of people.
Sure.
It would also be cool if the Wolves could ever score 140 though, like ever, because the offense is pretty stagnant. And it is going back to the 5-1 over these last 6 games and all those numbers. It's all against 3 teams, right? The Warriors, the Clippers, and the Lakers. Mm-hmm. So I know that that's kind of the way, if you're a critic or skeptical of some of this. But then I also kind of look at it as like preseason. I don't know. In preseason, typically you do like home and homes. Like the Wolves have used these last 5 or 6 games against mid opponents. The Lakers and Clippers and Warriors have all kind of bounced around in the standings, but to find themselves again. So I think that's the most important thing to take away. And not only did they become the best defense in the league again over these last 2 weeks, they did it off of something that was really tangible, like Ant calling them all out. It wasn't just like how would you look at all this stuff differently if it was just a flip that switched or a switch that flipped, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like there was actually something you can pinpoint in the DVD of this season, like, hey, Ant called them out around the holidays, and then they all played in, connected. We have to do a weekly shout out to Jake Painting, but he did a little 5-minute defensive breakdown on Howls and Growls this morning, and watch them move now. Like it's what it was last year. It's like 5.
Yeah.
What's the NSYNC song? Is it Bye Bye Bye? Remember when they're all together on like a string? Like that's how the Wolves play defense now. Is that they all
Off
move
of the
around.
No Strings Attached album? Of
Yes, but there were strings attached. That's just how they play defense now, and I think that, like last year, is something that you can just build on. I mean, Jaden. It wasn't just, I was trolling last night, but it wasn't just one good Jaden game. If you actually watch basketball, you've known Jaden's been playing defense like this now for more than 2 weeks. Offensively, it came last night. But on the defensive side, this is just who they should be. This is the personnel that they have. I mean, they still have, God forbid he's not going to win it, but like a potential 5-time defensive player of the year, kind of manning the paint, manning the rim. And then you have all these other guys like Jaden and Nikhil. Nas has stepped up a little bit. I do think, to answer your question about are you comfortable with this, I'm comfortable now because this is what we all grew to know from last year. But I don't think, kind of piggybacking off of what you and Britt were talking about, I don't think they can actually do anything unless they figure out some of the offense. Like the defense is great. You built the foundation. The concrete's been poured. But for this thing, I think now, because of what we watched against Dallas, and it's all about the playoffs now with this team, even though there's new faces, take the defense, bottle it up, bring it every night. That's your calling card. That's the identity that Finch called for at the 10-game mark in Portland. But big picture, dude, like I do think they need to not be like the Trent Dilfer Browns or Ravens, right? Like they got to have a little more big play potential, because there's just going to be nights where you just don't have it, or the officiating's weird and you just can't be, a 92 defensive rating? That's probably not sustainable long term, but it is good to see it back, because that's what the Minnesota Timberwolves should be, a defensive-oriented team.
Yeah, it's a needed gear for this team, given the roster construction that they have.
Roster construction is like the best way to put that. Like what they have, this is what they should do.
I do want to like play a clip about Finch on the offense, but just when you're talking about Rudy there and potentially 5th-time defensive player of the year, I think Wemby will get it. But I was watching the game last night, and you know how like Anthony Davis has a bunch of quotes about why he like dumbfounded why he hasn't won defensive player of the year. And I'm honestly not even trying to do the troll thing. But the reason Anthony Davis hasn't won defensive players of the year awards is because he plays defense like last night often, during the season, where it's like, Anthony Davis didn't wake up until like 3 minutes left in the third quarter. Maybe he starts like swatting shots and doing that. Like, I think like from a technical skill set standpoint, Anthony Davis is a better defender than Rudy Gobert, like maybe by kind of a lot. But Rudy does it every single game. And there aren't games where you watch Rudy play. He messes up on offense and there's this other stuff, but you don't ever see Rudy Gobert treat a regular season game like a preseason game. And I don't know, the whole vibe of last night was like, I don't know, the Lakers coming into the cold or whatever. I covered a lot of preseason games at Target Center, over the years, the whole vibe of that game was like preseason-y at the beginning, but the Wolves like turned up a little bit and had a little bit greater focus, and it came from their defense, right? And it came from their player who defensively is extremely consistent on that side of the floor. And that is the reason behind why he's won 4 defensive players of the year awards and will, make an all defensive team this season. The identity of this team has to be the defense, because Rudy can do that every single night. And if you have a player who can do that every single night, like you need to be catering towards that some. Now, he is that player that limits you offensively in different ways. Not that he can't be part of efficient offenses. Look at Utah. Great offenses there. But there are more specific ways you have to use him, or you can't play in all of these different ways offensively, which is what I think the Wolves are starting to run into, where like teams are kind of, we'll talk about Ant later. I mean, this is just getting crazy of teams, going like Giannis walls against him, gap help, know. And the Lakers, they played them twice in the last 2 weeks, and the Lakers game plan is clearly like switch everything, bait Julius Randle into playing one-on-one, which Julius did well in this game. But it's just like the offense has like very limited path, or just like executes very limited paths offensively. Because they have this defensive personnel of Rudy Gobert, who isn't a shooter at all, right? Julius Randle, who's a spotty 3-point shooter, and Jaden McDaniels, who's a spotty 3-point shooter. So it just kind of like narrows the pathway of what this team can be offensively, I think, even more than a season ago, because that's the difference between Karl spacing the floor and Randle not spacing the floor and being more of an isolation player. But they do need to find a little bit more offensively. And Finch was asked by Jace after the game of just like, kind of how sustainable is this offensive identity. Here's Finch.
7 straight games where you guys haven't hit 110 points, and you're 5-2 in that span.
Yeah.
Is this the path you think for this team's success, or do you hope it's the path for now?
Well, I hope it's path for now. I know I've seen this team really play much better offense. First 10 games I thought was a really good indication offensively of what we could be. And then, even when we've played good offense, we just hit these dry spells. And then after those dry spells, we seem to then kind of go a little bit too one-on-one. So we got to get back to trusting the things that we're working to get good shots, even when we don't make those shots. But for us, it's always going to be about our defense. So
it's a weird thing, man, right? Like, okay, defensive identity. It's about our defense. Like, yes. But like, I guess what I'm just at is like, I'm constantly stuck at like, what is the offense about? Because this isn't enough as currently constituted. And it has been better. Like he pointed to there, it's kind of been a while, where I'm not, if they rattle off like over the next 15 games, they have a really good offensive stretch. Like, I don't even really know how to, like, what does that look like? Right. Like that's what I'm struggling at. Like, what have they done in that time? Like you could point to, okay, maybe they got out in transition more. Maybe Ant got to the rim more. Maybe Julius was shooting more threes. Jaden starts making his threes at a higher clip. But let's go through those 4 things. Like, I don't think they're going to do that stuff. Like, this isn't a team that's going to get out in transition more. They don't do that. Like, I mean, maybe Ant could go bonkers from 3 again, but like, I don't think he's going to be able to get to the basket a lot. Like, teams aren't going to. Rudy's going to be down there in the dunker. There's going to be a guy at the rim. They're going to load up this gap help there. Could Jaden have a month where he shoots awesome from 3 or Randle? Like, I guess. But, like, those aren't really their things either. So, whenever I start talking myself into this team offensively, in addition to the elite defense, I just struggle to picture the offensive part. And I know I've said this a couple times this week, but I just felt like last night was another example of that where I'm like, okay, good. But, right? Like, that's where I'm at.
I love you, but you filibustered me there.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. I wanted to give you 2 random little anecdote things about the AD stuff because I thought you made such a great point. Anthony Davis played 36 minutes last night against a team that's not very good offensively, and the Wolves were plus 22 in those minutes. Mm-hmm. So just the goal. I mean, Anthony Davis has a way better chance of ever winning like an MVP because he has to kind of do it on both sides for that team. Whereas I think Rudy Gobert again, and this is what I wanted to ask you quick, because Wemby's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think there's always a little narrative to that award or to a lot of these awards, but he's minus 190 right now I'm just asking you quickly for the best defense in the league over the last 2 weeks. What do you think Rudy Gobert is to win another Defensive Player of the Year?
Well, I bet because Wemby's like,
If
was
Victor
he like
Wembanyama
plus
is minus
700,
he is 40-1.
Rudy is 40-1.
Yeah, to win Defensive Player. Again, I know I gave out a Rob Dillingham Rookie of the Year pick. It was like plus 250-1. I'm just saying, if you want to sprinkle something, he's 40-1 behind guys like Evan Mobley, Draymond Green, Jalen Suggs, Jaren Jackson Jr. But right now, the best defensive player on what is now, again, the best defensive team in the league is 40-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year. That's it. Now to the offensive stuff. I know we're going to do a little more deep dive into Ant later in this pod, but one thing I thought was interesting is that it's December 14th, and throughout so far, how many games have they played? 24. Ant has 6 30-point games. Last year, as of the 14th of December, he had 6 30-point games. I think he actually got hurt against Memphis and played like 4 minutes. So it's kind of like his bottom fell out. And then for the rest of the month, in 2 weeks, he had 6 more 30-point games. So just to like, what could the offense do? Ant could just take off. Like, that could be the one simple thing. There's so many more complex things that are probably better long-term to get everyone involved. But that could be just one thing that, I mean, I thought Ant played terrible last night. And we'll talk about that because of why. But that's one thing. Julius Randle, we should talk about him a little more. But also, too, just getting guys, you said they're never going to get in transition more. You're right. I think they have, though, more, right? Or they've emphasized it a little more.
Yep.
But I think they could just get a little more effort from guys. I mean, I clearly sent you my agenda for today, and it was just 2 words, Jaden McDaniels. But there's a lot of stuff that he did last night as a fan of his that's like, man, you could just do that every game. You know what I mean? Like, that would be another thing, too, is like, hey, can Dante just hit a couple more threes? I don't think the offense, I think it's harder to get to where they got defensively because that is like the in sync 5 men on a string type thing. I think offensively, although I can also understand that in the Finch tenure of 4.5, 5 years, it's never really happened. I just think offense is a little easier to figure out than defense. That would be like my general take. Like to get the offensive numbers from whatever they are, 19th or whatever, to like 12th, 11th, God forbid, top 10. I don't think it takes as much tweaking as it does to try to have a top 5 defense. Do you agree? Or
no, I do, and I would point out that has happened in the Finch era once.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It was before Gobert was here. It was that 21-22 season. We were talking about this in the media room last night after the game, and like how that team for the final 4 months of the 21-22 season, just like all of a sudden after being average the first, October, November, December offensively, they turned this corner, and that was the D'Angelo Russell, Patrick Beverly, Vanderbilt with with young Nas, Jaden, and Ant, of course. So there's like, we can kind of point to that of like offensively just out of nowhere doing it. I'm with you that is a lot harder to do defensively. I would imagine. I mean, I don't know. I haven't tracked enough of other teams over the course of the last few years where all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, we were like, we were 19th on defense at Christmas, and then for the last 4 months of the season we were number 1. Like, I don't think I'm with you it's a harder sort of leap to make. I do think this team is going to get somewhat better offensively. It's just like
same.
It's kind of, I guess that's what I'm saying is I'm trying to like predict what is a reasonable upswing for what that offense is, and we'll talk, like you said, we're going to talk about Jaden and Julius and Ant, and they're all reasons behind that. But let's grab our first break here to let you all know that today's show is brought to you by Stone and Skillet English Muffins. We always try to do the Stone and Skillet reads when Kyle is on the show because we both legitimately love these. I think the first time Stone and Skillet sent us like a package of these English muffins was about this time a season ago. It was like Christmas time, and he gave us those like treasure chest box of English muffins. We just both ate English muffins like the entirety of December. I mean, now when I go to the grocery store, I get the bread section, and get the bread for sandwiches, and I get my Stone and Skillet English muffins. That's at Whole Foods. For those of you who want to try this, like, again, go over the bread section, look around there, you'll find these Stone and Skillet English muffins there. It's just, especially if you're hosting for the holidays, you're gonna make like a a breakfast that you're going to put a little bit more effort into. I really would recommend trying these out, particularly over the holiday season. Like I said last week, Kyle, we're going to be making brunch on Christmas at our place. We're going to be making eggs Benedict, and we're going to have Stone and Skillet English muffins to do that. So if you want to learn more about Stone and Skillet, you can go to stoneandskillet.com. Just kind of shows you what more goes into these than your typical English muffin. I know it seems kind of silly to have an English muffin sponsor, but I legitimately love these. And when I'm at Whole Foods, I'm looking in that section to pick those up. So stoneandskillet.com or Whole Foods to try out their English muffins. Today's show is also brought to you by Treasure Island Resort and Casino. And Kyle, I know you because you were there a couple weeks ago, wanted to touch on Treasure Island, and kind of it was your first experience seeing it and being like, okay, there's more to this than it just being a casino with blackjack tables.
Yeah, I think the emphasis when it comes to Treasure Island is resort and casino. Because I knew that they existed about an hour south of town of Minneapolis, and they had a great casino, which it was still way better than I thought. But also, they have really great rooms. They hooked us up when we had our show. We got to stay in the rooms. They have a giant ass pool. Like, they have really good restaurants. It's really, really like a full experience. So if you're looking to go somewhere to like watch games, they have so many TVs and so many great places to like watch sports. They have all these different cover bands, all these different events going on, but also too, like, because the drive is the drive, throw on this podcast, drive down there, then stay the weekend, right? Hang out with your family, bring your friends, whatever. So I was blown away with the first time I went there, and I'm hoping to go back there and do more live shows with you. So if you're looking for something to do on the weekend, or like go check out some football games with some friends or your spouse or whatever, Treasure Island is a really, really awesome spot because they do have basically everything you would want to have a good weekend.
Yeah, man, watch parties for Wolves games, but also for Vikings games too. Just like think about that. I want to go out to watch a Vikings game. Okay, Treasure Island is going to have that going, and then also around the holidays, they do have a lot of live events going on, live bands, a lot of stuff. The 26th through the 31st of December. So if you have the family in town and want to do something, check out Treasure Island Resort and Casino. And for more information and a full list of Treasure Island's promotions, visit ticasino.com. All right, Kyle, let's talk about Jaden McDaniels. There was a specific reason I thought Jaden's game was interesting and better than usual, but in that matchup. But there was also, this is just a trend for him. We're talking since that defense kind of turned the corner, maybe even like the last 10 games. It's almost been a linear progression from Jaden of looking like the all defensive team player he was a season ago, while also adding some offense. What has stood out to you most in this upward trend for Jaden?
What specifically last night? It's that he filled up the box score, and my favorite moments or memories of his game last night were not on the box score. And this is the Howls and Growls video that Jake posted, but like 3 or 4 straight contests in the second quarter that were just effort plays, like getting to the corner when the defense is rotating, and using his length to just disrupt an Anthony Davis corner three. Anthony Davis not the biggest threat from three, but Jaden lowers that percentage a little bit. He had another contest in the middle. He had a rebound where he just kind of, I think it was him and Julius and Nas and AD all on the floor, and Jaden just like patted it off the backboard, but out jumped Anthony Davis to get the rebound, which then led to that crazy Nikhil transition kick to Nas in the corner for 3. He had that steal after Rudy got the offensive rebound, dunked on AD, where he steals the inbounds pass, throws it down. Just effort plays.
Right.
And I am a giant Jaden McDaniels stan, but I also know that the frustration is just, hey, that part, that's just every night. Like, there's no reason you can't do that every night, right? Like, he hit a slot 3 after Mike ran some pick and roll with Rudy. It's like, okay, well, you don't always hit those threes. You're shooting like 30%. That's going to just come and go, maybe. As like the president of the fan club, like that might just never be 40%, but it's the other stuff that I just think he's really well. I mean, he said it the other day at practice, right? Like it just kind of clicked. I'm back. And I think for the last couple of weeks, well, Rudy Gobert is 40-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year and is their best defender. I still think on the defensive end, Jaden is their most like can do so many other things. But then offensively, if he gives you what he did last night, again, it's not really about the 18 points on 7-11 shooting. It's the 9 rebounds, and it's also, man, 5 steals. He had 4 of them in the first 8 minutes. Like, that's just activity. That's just energy. And for a team that, like, when he's not hitting shots, dude, we say he's like Josh Okogie. But Josh Okogie always gives you, like, 120% juice. I don't think Jaden always does that. So for him to do it last night, Jim Pete said on the call he has, like, the toughest job on the team. But moving forward, like, that's, like, the new baseline, man. You show something like that to the fans, to your coaches, like, look at all this stuff I can do. People are going to start to expect it. So I would hope that moving forward against, Wemby and the Spurs on Sunday or whatever, that he has that exact same kind of level of activity, because he's always going to be the 5th option, I think, offensively. But if he can just give him those little extra things, get the ball out in transition, get the rebounds, that's huge.
Here's Rudy Gobert on Jaden McDaniels' game last night.
How impressive was Jaden on both ends of the floor tonight for you guys?
It was great. It was great. Gave us a great spark at the beginning of the game, and then I thought he impacted the game in a lot of ways on both ends. So it was key tonight.
What do you like about him in like an off-ball role? He wasn't as like on the main point guard as much, and kind of low man Finch was talking about that. How do you feel that?
I think he can impact. Have an impact anywhere on the floor. Whether it's being on the number one threat offensively, or being like more versatile. Getting rebounds, being as a low man. Being disruptive in passing lanes and things like that. So it was great for him to be able to be in both situations, and sometimes we'd rather put Ant on the scoring threat to get him going too. So it's good for us to be able to have different options.
It's like it could be something if you wanted to, you could lean into, because you could put Nikhil on the ball, or Ant or Mike.
Nikhil, Ant, Mike, depending on the matchup, I think it's hard also for an offensive player to have different looks, not get comfortable attacking against one person, but get Nikhil, then you get a taste of Jaden, then you get a taste of Ant. It's the strength of our team too.
So Kyle, we've talked about this a bunch over the years, like the idea of Jaden being off ball, and now he's coming over as the rim protector, as he did last night. He has 2 blocks, he has 5 steals, because he's off the ball, and now his steals he's generating are passing lanes rather than if he's on the ball and he's guarding Austin Reeves at the point of attack. Like the only way you're getting steals there is if you like poke check it away, or if you like beat him to the rim and pin it at the rim. Like, this allows him, when he's off ball, to be able to do more of those other box score stuffing things, which this team needs. And we've been like, oh, that'd be great for a while now. But I think Rudy's point there at the end of like, there's also just some value in giving whoever the primary scorer or creator is for the other team, like, different defensive looks, because Jaden McDaniels guarding the point of attack is different than Nickeil Alexander-Walker is guarding the point of attack, right? Both really good defenders, but in very different ways. Ant, when he's in isolation, very good defender, and in different ways than I think both Nickeil and Jaden there. So I've long wanted Jaden to more often function off ball and be that secondary rim protector, that low man there as well. And I just wonder if this is something they can lean into more often against opponents who do have like a primary scorer out there, because he was shifted into this role last night because it was like, well, there isn't a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on that Lakers team that they had to guard. They're like, okay, whatever, you can play off ball in this one. I mean, I know you agree. We both like to see more of that.
Yeah, but I also didn't think about it like until you tweeted it out last night or asked Rudy about it, because we've done for now 2 years the conversation of like against Jokic, right? Like, can you put another big on Jokic and then have Rudy roam? I don't think we've ever had that same conversation about like Jaden. Like, can you put another guard or small forward on a player and let Jaden roam? And I think that's what they did last night, and it was incredible to watch. The last time we did a podcast on a Saturday, it was coming off of, this was a little more on ball, but like James Harden going 7 for 20. So that's kind of like, if you go back and look, yes, they played the same 3 teams over the last 2 weeks, but even against those 2 Warrior games where maybe the box score didn't pop, I thought Jaden played awesome defense against Steph, right? But now it's like, so look at all the different types of guys he's guarding against. So I don't know. My Jaden McDaniels kind of summary is that him and I kind of have similar body types, but we kind of play the same. Like I still hoop, like just playing defense, doing all those little extra effort things. I think that's big. You just were talking about like off ball defensively, and when you said that, I was just thinking of off ball offensively, like against the Mavs. Is that he's always going to be the fifth option. I think it almost is worse now offensively for him having Julius Randle as a teammate than Karl-Anthony Towns. And that's not any shade towards Julius. I just think there's even less ball movement when he's out there with him, and there's less opportunity. So he does kind of have to steal inbounds passes to get points. But as we saw with Luka Doncic, like you can't have Jaden be publicly known as the fifth option come playoff time and have him standing in the corner, because then that just gives Luka or Shea or any other really, really talented player in the West like plays off. And I think that's why, and you pointed this out a couple weeks ago, but just get Jaden moving a little more, right? Like get him moving around on offense so he's not just so stagnant. So at least you're getting whoever's guarding him some cardio to make him more of a threat. So I just think the offense, I know Finch just said it's the barometer. I think when Jaden has offensive games like that, you're probably just always going to win them. But I am way more focused this morning on what Jaden did defensively, both with 7 combined blocks and steals, but just the contest to make shots. It's a numbers game, not only 2s and 3s, but just trying to decrease the percentage of any certain shot. I thought he did an amazing job of that last night. And then he had some times where, again, 9 rebounds, get out in transition or lead to other transition opportunities for your teammates. So one of the better games I think he's ever played. But I understand now that by making 5 times what he made last year or 6 times what he made last year, like he should be able to do this kind of like Rudy has that floor of, I'm not going to let him lose certain games. That should be Jaden now too.
Let's move over to the offensive side of the ball, and specifically the Julius Randle part of it. But I think there's a connection here, right?
Yeah, I do too. Yeah,
and we talk about like the Wolves' stagnant offense, lacks ball movement, lacks body movement, and I do think, and some people are like thinking, and I know, and I get it. 24 games or whatever into the season, and it's like, wait, why does this seem just as stagnant as it was at the beginning of the season? Haven't they been coaching this? Hasn't anybody been telling them to move and do this and that? Yeah, yes, they have. And yes, it is still too stagnant, and they need to do more of it. But what is happening is, as we get 20 games into the season or whatever, like teams are scouted more, and teams are choosing what to give the Wolves offensively. And the main thing that we're seeing more and more often is teams choosing to switch, just straight switch any sort of screen. So they just kind of stay in that shell concept, right? And it's a lot easier to do body and ball movement when a team is in coverage, right? The big is dropping back, the low man is coming over, this and that. It's like, you're like, okay, well, here's an opportunity to roll through the lane or cut through the lane here or reposition myself on the 3-point line. But teams are now daring the Wolves to play better static offense. And they just need to create it themselves. And what happened last night was the better static offense was just playing through Julius Randle, right? Because whenever Ant got the ball, entire team goes over there to them. And then when it was in Randle's hands, they were kind of willing to guard Randle with one, often an undersized player who switched onto him. And so that just sort of hyper fixates the Wolves offense on Randle, but I don't know what the alternative is there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I tweeted out at halftime, I was like, that was really good Julius Randle first half. He was 6 for 6 from 2 in those isolation opportunities there. And a lot of people responded, and I get it too. They're like, what are you talking about? That was so stagnant, and it was the same. He just made shots on this one. I mean, I guess some of that is true. My question is, against that type of defense that is daring you to play that way, what should the Wolves be doing differently? You know what I'm saying? Like, if they're daring you to run the ball with Randle, then you got to kind of run the ball with Randle, right?
And I will say, because you tweeted it out, maybe my favorite Julius Randle half of the season. And I was scrolling through halftime after putting in that dimmer switch I told you about, and and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I rewatched it again today, and I actually sincerely mean this. I think Julius Randle is making me a better basketball follower because I didn't agree with you. But because I'm watching what I think a lot of people in your mentions were stagnant. And I always think, because I'm trained under the tutelage of Chris Finch of like flow and stuff, that like stagnation or isolation is bad. Because when Ant does it, or when he did it coming up through his first couple of years, I was like, well, that's not leading to anything other than just one long two, right? No other guys are involved. And Julius does a lot of that too. But I do think, and I'm not just like blowing smoke, that you're kind of opening my eyes to the reason it worked is because of how the defense was thrown at them. And again, even if you don't like it, Julius Randle one-on-one against, I don't know, man, like what, 92% of the league is probably an advantage, especially in the post. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of guys that can keep up with him. It is a 12-second play where his dribble, more repositioning, dribble, but he was really effective last night. And I think the numbers that you sent me really kind of bear that out. And I think still, as long as he's on the team, he's going to have to be a big part of this. Like, I know the Kyle Anderson comp has kind of gone away for a little bit, but I still think at their best, him kind of summarize what you said. Like, if it's one-on-one, I think he's going to probably get a good look. And if they throw a double at him, he has to continue to find really crisp passes to get that flow started, because that's how the offense kind of was looking those first couple of weeks, and it looked really good. So it's a work in progress for me and a lot of people that are in your mentions watching Julius Randle play.
And totally fair. I'll say this. I think the Wolves would be better if they had Kyle Anderson on the team instead of Julius Randle. Just straight up. If you made that trade and you put Nas into the starting lineup and Kyle was the backup for, I think the team's better. Maybe people disagree with that. But Kyle Anderson is not on the team as one of your two power forwards, and Julius Randle is, and this is how teams are guarding your Julius Randle team that you, Tim Conley, and Chris Finch, whatever, signed up for. So they're switching everything, right, against this team, which is just like, think about the starting lineup, right? Okay, if we're switching anything, that kind of kills Gobert-Conley pick and roll game, right? Because when does that work? Oh, that works in confusion of the coverage, right? You find Rudy on the pocket, you find Rudy on the lob. Rudy sets a good screen, and the guy, the guy ends up going under it, and Mike hits a three, right? Well, if you just switch it, like, no advantage on that one. And then what they're also doing is they're switching everything, but loading up like both gaps against Ant, so that kind of like gets taken away. And my question just is like, what are you supposed to do then, other than rely on your other two players in the starting lineup, who are Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle? I don't want the offense to rely on Julius Randle or Jaden McDaniels either, but the alternative is running two-man game with Gobert and Conley against a switching concept.
Right.
That's not that much of an, I mean, maybe equal, like maybe there should be a little bit more of that. And then we know what it looks like when Ant goes and isolates against a defense that has a guy in the right gap and a guy in the left gap. So that was the fourth quarter. That's been a lot of the last month for Ant. That was the Warriors game. Teams know how to guard this team, and the Wolves' recourse needs to be Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels need to punish that. And if they can punish it, then it's going to reopen up some stuff, because teams aren't going to be able to guard them that way. And I think they won the game because Julius Randle punished that last night. I don't know if you're going to get that every night, but like, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a coach. Like, maybe there are more things to be able to do, but I think like pretty basic level, like, you just need those two. If this is going to be the starting lineup, you're rolling with. And a lot of people are like, oh, this shouldn't be the starting lineup. Okay. But like, it's been the starting lineup for 24 games. I don't think that's going to change. Operating within the constraint of this is how they're going to play. This is how they play better within this way, I think.
Right. And Chris Finch has shown a stubbornness that, like I said, as long as this is what it is, like this, there's two conversations, right? Like, what would it look like if you could throw the perfect power forward next to Jaden and Rudy? Okay, that's one conversation. Mm-hmm. This is the power forward they have. And I think your analogy, we're going to do this for 2 more months, by the way, so buckle up. Football analogy of, if they put 8 in the box, you just have to throw against it, right? Like, you have to. And I think that's kind of what, JJ Redick is getting a lot of gray hairs in these last couple of weeks, but I still think his defensive concepts that his coaching staff throws at the Wolves in these games is pretty good. And last night they just kind of said, hey, Julius Randle beat us. And I think for the most part, he was really efficient in doing so. I also think there's another conversation of bigger picture. I mean, this is such a fine line, and I kind of empathize with Mike Nori and Chris Finch of this starting lineup that I don't think either of us are like in love with has two guys that are really heavy ISO, and there's a thin margin come like playoff time where if Julius, I don't know what you said, was he 6 for 6 from 2 in the first half?
Yeah.
If he's 3 for 6, is there a halftime adjustment? Or if he's 2 for 6, or do you continue to lean over process over results type thing? So I think you opened my eyes to him. He was really good last night. I also think box score, stats, all that stuff. He just competed on defense.
Yep.
And that's, I know, really lame if you look up how much an athlete makes of $30 million. Like, oh, he tried hard. But I think that spawned from the Anthony Edwards call out. I think you have 3 or 4 of the best, I don't know, man, 30 defenders in the league with Rudy and Jaden and Nikhil and Ant when he tries. But you just got to get Julius to not have those embarrassing backdoor cuts that he was trying to guard Anthony Davis last night. He's given up height, he's given up weight, but he tried, and I think that was big in and of itself. And also, too, his playmaking. He had that really nice kind of drop down pass to Rudy for a dunk. He had like a kind of a lob to Nikhil that should have been an and one. So,
and those are all we're all second half, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yep. Oh, both in the second half. Yeah.
Because what the Lakers started doing was they started bringing a second guy over
They dropped a safety and then they ran the ball.
Boom. Exactly. So it's playing through that. I get it. It's not like super fun to watch. That was an ugly game. It's an ugly style offense. My question is, and maybe people who are smarter about X's and O's than you and I, like seriously, like comment on it. Do it. I know we're probably making it, or I'm probably making it sound too much of like you have to do this, or like you're like, if there's 8 guys in the box, you have to pass. Well, like the Vikings didn't when Adrian Peterson was there too. So there's like, there's always some, some gray area to that. But I just think,
I think my concern is that that's a big topic this week in my mind. Not just what you've said or Britt said, but talking to someone else kind of around the team is like, you're starting to see scouts and game plans adjust.
Yeah.
Like this is not that we've talked about these 4 quarters or 4 chapters of the season. It's not just for content. It's actually how teams kind of work. And now you're in the second segment. You're trying to do some different things. I just don't want the scout on the scout. So like the scout on last night's game to be like, okay, come playoff time, like let's have Julius Randle beat us. Because I don't know if that's a productive way to win a playoff series. Do you know what I mean? So like finding
probably isn't.
right. So that's so I don't want to get too comfortable with that. But if this is the ingredients you got, I thought they made, a pretty good meal out of it last night. So, but still just, I prefer my Julius Randle to be facilitating more. And if that is going to spawn from going one-on-one against Gabe Vincent in the post and getting easy buckets, then that I might just have
That's it, dude. That's it. Like that is what it has to be, is like once they then bring the second one, Julius can kick it. Like we've seen that. Like it's just the spacing isn't always good with that, or like, sometimes the doubles come in late or whatever. But if you're able to, if they get scared of Julius Randle at 8 feet away from the basket and bring a second guy, Julius does know how to play make off of that. You just need to get to that more consistently and cleanly. That's where the next level comes from. Like, I don't know if that hits, but if we talk about this team turning a quarter offensively, it's through this. That's the only pathway, I think, at least with the starting lineup and the roster constructed as it is. Let me grab our second break here. Today's show is brought to you by Doer Jeans. You've all heard me talk about my Doer Jeans. I love them. I just got a couple more. And they have like hoodies and stuff like that. So I'm going to have a hoodie. I think I'll start wearing that on the show, or a couple shows in January, so you can see it on the YouTube channel. Kyle, you know what it's like when you like find that brand where you're like, okay, this is both my style, like in what I want to look like, and also is comfortable. And I really I genuinely feel this way about Doer Jeans. They have that flex to them. You've all heard me say that, where like they look like nice pants but kind of feel like sweatpants when you're wearing them. I really love them, and I would recommend if you're thinking about getting a gift for somebody in your life, checking out Doer. Honestly, get yourself a Christmas present. If you want to do that, you can check out Doer's flagship stores if you are in LA or Denver. But probably more likely, you're going to shop online at shopdoer.com/DaneMoore. Right now, my listeners get 20% off your first purchase when you use my exclusive URL, shopdoer.com/DaneMoore. That's in the show notes. This is such a great deal. Don't wait to get 20% off now. Go to shopdoer.com/DaneMoore. Okay, Kyle, off of that Julius Randle piece and off of the offense is Anthony Edwards. And this has just kind of been a thing for a while now where teams are guarding him in a certain way. It's, he's objective number 1, 2, and 3 in stopping and slowing down the Wolves offensively. And they're putting 2 on the ball, putting that gap help there, forcing him to be a passer. And I just feel like Ant's getting a little bit sick of it. As I would too, if I was playing, if that's how I was being guarded out there. I thought Jace had a good question to Finch about this and what he wants it to look like if this is how teams are going to guard Ant in that way.
The other team's heavy gap help against Ant. Like, what do you want that to look like?
I'd like him to go quick and make the right pass if there's 2 or 3 on him. So, he's got to get to the move quicker. It's too many bounces going nowhere. It draws in a crowd. Then everybody can anticipate when the pass is going to come too. So he's been better at that. Tonight we got really sticky.
So, I mean, it's not like it's been completely sticky with Ant for these last 2 weeks. You think of that first Warriors game. It was really good, kind of found a way to play through that. And then the Warriors, the second game, lean even more into like, okay, well, we're going to actually put Gary Payton on you the whole time. And we're going to have Draymond Green sitting in this gap and whoever else sitting in the other gap. Like, how frustrated are you with this, Kyle, where it's like, it's just Ant offensive possessions are kind of like running into a wall, not necessarily totally due to his decision-making, but due to the way that he's being guarded. It's kind of feels stuck to me in a way.
I mean, this is like the biggest compliment in the world. I think he's been playing really bad for the last couple of weeks. But it's like of a compliment of like this would be the last 2 weeks would probably be where Chris Hines' second book on Ant starts because like he has now hit. You think about the rookie wall. I think he's hit like the superstar ceiling kind of where Steve Kerr is probably him and Spo, right? Guys that have not only coached against him but coached for him in like Team USA stuff. They know the best way to frustrate him. And I think that's evident now, and it's a compliment. It's like, hey, man, you call it the Giannis wall. That's the biggest compliment you can get as like a superstar is like, we're going to guard you like Giannis. That's pretty good. But I can also imagine for someone who just loves to talk like you or I, if we were just dropped down onto like the Thursday Night Football Amazon desk where there's like 7 people and I was like, I have to talk way less now and still be effective. I'd be fucking mad because it's like I want to say things. So for him, I totally get, and I watch a player. I mean, last night he kind of had that weird, I don't know, like not non-contact, but he kind of bumps his knee or ankle. I don't know if it was ever clarified what the injury was, but he was out for most of the game. But he still just looked when he was out there frustrated, and you're seeing more and more of that. And I think that to kind of dovetail off what we just talked about in segment 2 with Julius Randle, like it or not, they got to find. I mean, Julius has to do some of that stuff because I think he's Ant's best outlet out there to get some of the pressure off him. It's not seeing a double or, as we say, like 2 in front of him and then giving it to Mike and then getting it back. I think he just needs other guys to kind of step up for a little bit and make them a little more threatening. I mean, if Jaden McDaniels were to hypothetically string together 3 or 4 games offensively kind of like this, teams are going to have to adjust a little bit, and maybe that opens up for Ant. But big picture, I just think he is now getting the superstar treatment, and he's going to have to find more ways. And I mean, if he's joked that he's not a passing guard, he's a shooting guard. It would be so frustrating, right? To be like, I just want to put my stamp on this game and they're not letting me. And to Finch's point, the best way to do it is to just get rid of the ball and have the trust factor you're going to get it back. But I don't know. I empathize with him because they're winning games and I know he cares about that more than anything. That's why he called out his teammates. But it's got to be frustrating to show up to work and just be like, man, I can't literally do anything.
Mm-hmm. I think this goes again, but like you need to have more structure then if you want to have
Oh,
if you
for
want to
sure.
have
Okay.
not you. I'm just saying like Finch. Like I just think about a Dallas game, right? And there's like the two different kind of scripts to a Dallas game or a Dallas half, right? Where it's like, they're giving Luka that attention, and if he gets that attention, he's either finding his elite rim roller, right, in Gafford or Lively, or he's finding his shooters in the corner, because one of those three spots are going to be open if they put two on Luka at the top. But it's in the same ways pretty much over and over again, right? When you watch Dallas and where he's getting his catches, and so it's more scripted, it's more easily understandable, and I think Luka can do more things than that. He doesn't need to be in that spot, but by doing that over and over again, it gives him a way to break this. And then if teams stop giving Luka that attention because whoever's hit all these corner threes or Lively's been a problem on the roll or whatever, then it shifts into like, okay, here's more of a situation for Luka to go at a guy one-on-one or maybe like 1.5 guys there. And then we see those Luka like scoring opportunities. I don't think Ant is going to be able to figure out this issue within the flow. I think Ant is able to figure out this issue of heavy attention defensively within some more structure. And that's, I would get into that more often. Now the issue is, okay, let's set it up like Dallas, right? So now that's Jaden in the corner. That's not great.
We just said don't do that.
Right, yeah, and then probably might be Julius in the opposite corner, or Julius as the kind of other guard above the break. And it's just asking these guys who are not, they're not like 3-and-D catch and shoot role players in the corner to be hitting those shots at a high clip or willingly taking them. Like, I could see, even if the Wolves played that and they're like, okay, Jaden right corner, Julius left corner, like I could see both of them in that game catching open looks and being like, no, I'm dribbling, I'm going at it. Whereas, you think about the Dallas guys, like, can't wait to just catch and shoot this corner three. And honestly, it's, if you want to make the best argument for the starting lineup change, I think it is, we have decided we need more structure, and with more structure, we need more shooting on the floor within our starting group. And that's Naz and or Nikhil in within that group, because I do feel good about if Rudy and Ant are playing high quad pick and roll and Nikhil's in the corner sitting there, right? Open.
Mm-hmm.
And then same thing for Naz Reid, is more of a threat if he's in that Julius spot there within a structure spread floor offense. But I don't think that's how they want to play.
Can I just like quick 30-second tangent? Yeah. We're an hour in and we're gonna keep going for a little bit, but like no one's sympathizing with Chris Finch. He makes a lot of money and he owns a boat and life is good. But do you kind of just ever listen to all of these Dane Moore NBA pods and Jace and Chris and Britt and me and kind of realize like, man, it might be kind of hard to fucking coach a team.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just like, and I know people are like, oh, you got to hold him accountable. It's like, dude, Chris Finch is legally obligated to talk to us before and after games, no matter what. So like this idea that like we're not trying to hang him and he's not going to talk to us. Like, dude, he had to talk to us anyway. Okay, like that's just how this works. So I just think you're probably right there, but it's also, my brain is hurting too. It's like, okay, so if Ant needs more structure to get him going a little bit. I mean, he's averaging a career high in turnovers. Then we got to put Jaden in the corner a little more, be a little more stagnant and other stuff. It's like, well, we just said don't do that with Jaden. And then we just had this whole 10-minute thing with Julius and getting him the ball. It's a very hard domino setup to try to figure this all out. It's his job.
That's why they're 24th in offense.
Right. So it's I get that. And this goes back to like, for 2 weeks, you and I were just pulling all these levers, using lever analogies. But if you do pull the lever of like, tomorrow against the Spurs, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is starting in place of Jaden McDaniels. Well, Jaden's shooting 40% from three, albeit in a small sample size in the month of December. It's like, and you just took the confidence out of his sails. So when is?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it like that.
No. I don't.
I just meant like, could you get to more structured lineups?
Absolutely.
When Jaden isn't on the floor, or when And then so can Ant play a little bit more in Nas and Nikhil centric lineups? That's more what I'm saying than like a shift. Like you can just play a different way in Ant, Nas, Nikhil lineup threesome versus an Ant, Julius, Jaden threesome. That's just a fact.
And we're talking about different names of all the 8 starters that Finch referenced. I'm not trying to do it again. I know we're going to bring them up in a bit, but like, I don't even know how many minutes Ant's played alongside Rob. Like, I just think Rob, with the juice and the energy he brings, like, Ant seems to love playing with guys like that. Like, that might be just another little wrinkle, too. I don't know how much structure is tied into playing a 19-year-old rookie point guard. Like, you probably need more Mike out there. But if me, at the, 25, 26 game mark, I still am opening my eyes to, like, man, there is a lot of... The internet is right. There are a lot of things Chris Finch could do here and levers he can pull. I just don't always think, myself included, that we think about what happens if you pull that lever.
Sure.
Right. And like what it leads to.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it makes it a challenge, and big picture, no one's sympathizing with his coaching staff because they can't do anything in the playoffs if they're the 24th offense. Like there's really no real precedent for that. Or if there is, your margin for victory is so thin. So I don't know how they're going to do it. Again, I'm saying that Ant's playing, bad basketball. He's averaging a career high 26.3, but I think a lot of that was kind of
he could be better. It's pretty clear that here are these X, Y, and Z ways it could be better, which Finch just said. I just played that clip. Ant has been saying, over and over again, I need to like stay consistent with my decision making and, not get frustrated and try and force his way through and hopefully the Golden State game was a learning lesson in that sort of way, because he was just like, fuck it, I'm going. Like, in that Golden State, I don't care that Gary Payton's on me and that Draymond Green is right there behind him. I'm going to go. And it didn't work because nobody's getting that. Nobody's getting effective, efficient offense in the league. Shea, whoever. If you have Gary Payton on you as the primary, Draymond Green sitting in the right gap, and like Wiggins sitting in the left gap, like that's literally 1-on-3. And what did Finch say? He said, okay, if that's how they're guarding you, go faster, more decisively, looking to kick. Like that, there is more that Ant can just do within this construct that is free flowing. I think what you need to assess if you're Finch is you go, how often am I going to get that? How often am I going to get that level of decision making from Ant? And to be fair, Ant's decision making has gotten better. He referenced
100%. Yeah.
He referenced that number the other day at practice where he's like, we went through all of Ant's clutch time decisions this season. We judged 80% of the decisions he's made in crunch time this season have been the right one, when previously that was 50%. Like, Ant is getting better at this, and maybe that's just what has to come is continuing to have patience with that, knowing that he's going to make better and better decisions against this, more decisive, quicker decisions. But in the meantime, my suggestion would be, let's just mix in a little bit more structure with pairing Ant with players who would thrive a little bit more in structure, which would be Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Not to say you got to play, because you're right. Like, can't play Jaden less. Shouldn't be playing Jaden less. Jaden and Julius just had the best offensive games on the team last night. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to get Ant going, which is something that's going to need to come. Those are some steps I think that they'll need to take.
I also think too, and now you've been in the locker room a little bit more. I'm just going to say it again. I still roll over my grave thinking about the fact that the biggest moment of the season just happened, like a tree falling in the woods and no one heard it. Yeah. But you're in the locker room again. You were in Golden State for those 2 games. You've been around the team a little more. I also just think, too, he's thinking a little bit more, like just in general. Like, he did have to call his teammates out before the holiday. And, like, that's probably, from the way I understand Ant, like, that's probably not something he wanted to do, but he kind of just realized, I got to do it, right? Kind of like media availability. I don't want to do it, but I got to do it. So I just think, again, the first book on Anthony Edwards has been written. I've read a lot of it, so that'll be published. But I think the second book starts with like kind of this. It's like, okay, you're getting defended like Giannis, like Shea, like Luka. That's the biggest compliment in the world. And I think we've ironed that out here. But those guys didn't stick at that ceiling. Like, they then found new ways to because they are the most important person on the team. Like, yes, the defense is awesome. We did 20 minutes on that, and Julius has been looking good, and Jaden. But like, if Ant is averaging a career high turnovers come playoff time, nothing's going to work. Like, this is all not going to figure it out. But you have 60 games to get there, or 55 games to get there. So you asked me at the beginning, like, how comfortable are you with all this stuff? I think I'm comfortable now knowing that whoever they play, especially with an upcoming schedule that's kind of interesting, that they're going to have really good defense. But to me, if you're like, okay, so what do you want to focus on these next couple of weeks? It's getting Anthony Edwards back unlocked like they did a year ago on the 14th, where he just kind of exploded for the rest of December.
And to be fair to Ant, and in the Shea and Luka comparison, those guys have significantly better personnel around them to be able to break that type of coverage, right? You know, you watch Oklahoma City play, right? And it's a spread floor concept, right? You know, and Dallas is too. Or Oklahoma City's playing like 5 out a lot more. You know where Anthony Edwards would be a lot better offensive player for? The Oklahoma City Thunder, because he would have way more opportunity, you know, to get downhill. Dallas has better, I think probably pick and roll catch partners than the Wolves do with Gobert, and they have better corner shooters there, you know, at least in their starting group. So those teams that have had a little bit more time to put rosters around Luka and Shea have put rosters around them in a style of play that allows them to go get their 30 every night, regardless of how they're being covered. Let me grab another break here, and then we'll keep going. Today's show is brought to you by Adriana Lonick at Coldwell Banker Realty. Adriana is a Minnesota and Wisconsin licensed realtor, and she's there for you if you are in that step of the process of like, I think we're ready to buy or sell our home. We're starting to think about it, and the first step there is to sign up for a free consultation with her. You sign up for a free consultation by going to thedancingrealtor.com, where you can get more information there. You can call or text her at 715-304-9920. In that process, she'll help you understand what it is that you can do, maybe what you can't do, when you should be doing it. And the perk that we're offering is if you do sign up for one of these strategy sessions, you're entered to win some free lower level Wolves tickets. So however many of you sign up, you know, we'll do drawings to be able to give away free tickets from that. So if you are thinking about buying or selling your home, think about Adriana Lonick at Coldwell Banker Realty by going to thedancingrealtor.com or by calling or texting her at 715-304-9920. If you already own a home, today's show is also brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company, where maybe this winter time, you know, we're inside more often. We're not going out. It's too cold. It's home project time. You heard Kyle, he put in a dimmer light or whatever.
Dimmer switch, baby.
Dimmer switch light at his home last night. It is home improvement season. And if you're not as handy as Kyle Theige, you know, you might need a professional to come in and set up a home improvement project for you. The deals that Your Home Improvement Company has going on right now, I mean, you can do anything, any sort of home improvement project with them, but the deals they have going on kind of for this last quarter of the year of 2024 is buy 2 windows, get 2 free on triple pane windows. And they're also offering 30% off bathroom remodels. So that can be a simple tub to shower conversion or a full on bathroom remodel, as you're seeing on the screen there. Also, whatever the project is, Your Home Improvement Company offers great financing deals that require 0 money down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2026. So again, if you are thinking about a home improvement project and you want to get it done right, go to yourhomeimprovementco.com or call 509-284-8212. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better.
Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. Well, because there's 2 more things I want to talk about. I want to talk about, I think we're getting close to something, Rob Dillingham, a more consistent role. I think he's showing Finch more stuff there. And then I want to talk a little bit about the schedule ahead for the Wolves, which is, it's going to get a lot more difficult. There's going to be, if they rattle off a 93.2 defensive rating over the next 6 games, like, there's not going to be anything we're going to be able to say about this because they're playing some damn good teams. But let's start with Rob first. I believe that I asked Finch about Dillingham after the game. We'll play that clip. Finch is sounding a little bit more into things here. Here's Chris Finch on Rob Dillingham.
see him getting a little bit more aggressive with the shot and adding more to the
Sure.
defense here?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really pleased with his defense, mostly on the ball. His defense at the top of the floor has been great. He's got to continue to work on his defense at the bottom of the floor. I know he's given up size and mass down there, length, all that stuff. But he's still got to find a way to be present and impactful as he can down there too. So, and then being aggressive, looking for a shot. I think he's settled into the blend of being able to kind of get to the paint, create some offense, and also be aggressive for himself.
Kyle, it does hurt him in terms of like getting playing time quickly that he plays on a team that is obsessed with having a defensive identity. Like last year, the entire rotation, everybody who played all year, nobody was a bad defender, right? Like that, they're big enough to guard, they're all that. And Rob is just going to have defensive limitations due to size. Though I think we both, and Finch too, have been impressed by his way of kind of thinking through defense, competing defensively. But there is an element of like, it's going to limit his role when the Wolves are very obsessed right now with being able to execute defensively. He brings up that low man concept there. It's like, well, we're struggling to have Julius Randle and Naz Reid do it. If Rob Dillingham gets put into that spot, we're just going to get exposed in some ways. I think it goes the other way though, too, where he does have a lot of insulation where if and when he's out there, he's got 4 really good defenders surrounding him. And I think Finch is starting to trust that a little bit more, especially if there's a small guard that isn't as much of a threat. The games Rob's played a lot are the Boston game, and he was out there guarding Pritchard a lot. The Houston game, he was out there guarding Van Vliet a lot. Last night, he played an extended run when Gabe Vincent was out there. It seems like those are the situations where Finch is most comfortable playing him. But I think it's going to need to get to a point of probably playing him more in more uncomfortable defensive situations while trusting that the offense will pay off for that difference. And I think that's getting believable.
Yeah, you said, there's times where it's hard for Finch and his staff maybe to trust having him out there defensively and stuff because of what they're trying to do in their identity. I also think it's hard to have him out there sometimes because offensively he's stationed behind maybe the best shooting guard in the league, maybe the most important person on the team, and Mike Conley, right? We were talking about how they need a quarterback out there. The Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I think is getting close to earning the Juan Soto contract, and then like Dante DiVincenzo, who was like the prize of the Carl trade. So he's also staring at a bunch of guys that rightfully or wrongfully just have more food on the pecking order. So I thought last night was a really impressive game, but also kind of interesting because he only did play like 2 or 3 minutes in the first half. And I'm at the point now, despite how pro Finch I am, I'm out on that. I just think it fucks with Josh and Rob's head. I don't think there's like any motivation to it. I think if I was subbed in situationally and had to come back out 90 seconds, it would mess with me. It didn't mess with him, so credit to him. Ant gets hurt. I think he's fine, but like he gets hurt in that second half, right? So then I think that's where Rob got the minutes. But to Rob's credit, offensively on the left side of my screen, those 2 threes he hits just kind of run and pick and roll with Rudy, that's something that
Totally.
I don't, and again, maybe Dante, if he finds it. I mean, I know he switched shoes from orange to green, so maybe that'll help, but there's no one else on the team that can do that. There isn't. Not even really Mike Conley at times. Like what Rob did, those 2 threes, that was just an aspect of the offense. The game was never really in question, I guess, but I also thought those were 2 big-time threes. Plus, the ovation he got on my screen when he subbed in the first time was crazy. Defensively, some of the stuff Finch talked about, it's not his fault, but I do think last night he had this is nitpicking, a little too much dip on the chip. I think there was like 3 straight Lakers threes where it was his guy that hit it, that he was maybe helping a little too much. Austin Reeves had like a corner, or like a kind of like a mid-corner 3, and then Gabe Vincent hit one in the corner. Both times Rob just was a little out of position, and then he doesn't have Jaden's length, so he can't contest. And it was 90-85 when Gabe Vincent hit that 3, and Finch called a timeout, and you never saw Rob again. So we've discussed this all summer. Like, there's nothing he can do to get longer or taller. Can he get a little bigger? Can he get a little stronger? Sure. But I just come back to, like, a general box score from last night, albeit a little interesting because Ant got hurt. There's just no reason that Rob can't play 10 minutes a game. Like that would be my main thing right now. And I know we went back and forth on this all the time. I just offensively, defensively, whatever you want to talk about, I just think the ball, he has Naz Reid, Iowa Wolves in him, even though he's never been down there. Of just the ball moves and actions are quicker and crisper. And yes, he's going to have some turnovers, but man, Nikhil threw another one into the stands last night on a turnover. You know what I mean? So I am at the point now, at whatever the record is, 14 and 12, I'm okay giving up some of the stuff that Rob gives up because I think offensively he is a little lightning bolt for a team that maybe long term he only sticks at 12 minutes a game all the way to April. But I know that we've been doing the same talks, you and I, and you see it a little better than I do. But I just think he brings a level of energy that this team, now that they've figured out the defense, they can have those missed opportunities with a short point guard because I think offensively he's given them a big jolt.
So talk this through with me a little bit because I think a lot of people are like, he's got to play 12 minutes a night, and I think we agree with that, and I even think like Finch and Nori do too. But what they're running into, right? And what happens is he's subbed in the first quarter, right? And the halves work the same, like they kind of get to the rotation similarly. He subs into the game in the first quarter with 2 minutes and 33 seconds left, and at that point, Mike Conley is already subbed out of the game because Mike Conley plays 6-minute shifts, right? Mm-hmm. And we get that. Like, we understand, like, Mike Conley should not be playing longer. He should not be playing 9, 10, 11-minute shifts. Like, that's intuitive, right? So Mike Conley subs out 6 minutes into the first quarter. And then Rob subs into the game 9.5 minutes into the first quarter there, right? Now, Mike Conley is going to come back in to start the second quarter, where the Wolves get to their Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, plus the 3 bench guys lineup, which has been awesome this season, right? So I get that. I'm like, okay, Conley's got to get out, and I get wanting to play that 5-man group because it's probably won you like 3 games this season. It's really good. So that's where you kind of run into this wall with Rob of what is the structure of the rotation so as to get him in more. You get what I'm saying there? Mm-hmm, And so maybe like the answer would be, and I wonder how comfortable they would feel with this. Is it like, could you leave Rob in over the quarter break from the first to second quarter or the third to fourth quarter, right? And leave him in there in place of Dante DiVincenzo or Nikhil Alexander-Walker, right? Mm-hmm. Like that would be like, okay, like he's kind of like their guards, but now you're playing Mike Conley and Rob Dillingham at the same time. And that we've seen none of that, I think is instructive because we've seen Finch play a lot of multiple point guard lineups over the years, right? D'Lo and J-Mac, Conley and J-Mac.
Starts Pat Bev.
Right. Pat Bev, Pat Bev and D'Lo, right? Like, so it's not that Finch is against playing 2 point guards, but maybe not Rob and Mike 2 point guards because of some of those. I don't know. I'm like everybody else. I'm trying to think this through. I'm trying to find more ways to get to it, but I do get it from that standpoint that it's not, as you know this too, it's not as simple as being like putting a slider over to play 12 minutes. Particularly given Mike's rotation spot.
And I think people know this. Like, I want Rob to play more. That's why we fought earlier. And like, it didn't even make sense sometimes, but and that's when the defense wasn't great. Like, I just think Rob should play more, guys. Listen, I'm with you. Rob Dillingham Muse, I'm with you. I also think as I'm working this through, every time I watch Rob Dillingham play, and I'm like, man, he gave him some good minutes. I checked the box score the next morning. He's a team worst -10 in 8 minutes of play. And I don't, again, plus minus is so noisy, and there's so much stuff that goes in there that you can nitpick. But that's like a thing, right? Like we do these pods and like, hey, Rob was good last night, but he was also -18 in 9 minutes. I would imagine that at least comes up in some coaching meeting, right? Like they have it way more advanced than we do, but why is that? And maybe a lot of it is just other stuff. But I would think that at least for now, that's something that they're pointing at. It's like, he has given us some good minutes, but we're kind of getting killed out there. Yeah. So I don't know, and I have no take on that. I think it's just something to monitor. But I guess my
we don't need a take. We don't need a take. We just we could say that Rob played well last night. We were encouraged by that. We shared what Finch's thought process was on it by asking him about it, and we discussed the puzzle that is the thing, and like that's the information. Like whoever's listening, like take that and think about it as you do, and you might be entitled, that person there, like, and I wouldn't even say you're wrong to be like, I don't care, Dane, like still play him. Okay, like let's just, and that person might be right. It's just, this is what I think they're running into. And why, when we're all like, man, I feel like he should be playing 12 minutes a night and he isn't. I think these are the reasons. That's all I'm saying.
75 minutes in, so I'll get a little spicy here to close it up. But I actually would upgrade my take to the first 20 or so games, or the first 25% of the season. It was all about 8 starters. I'm trying to figure it out. And they never changed that starting lineup. So they just kind of had the same guys. I think this next 25%, I'm going to take back that I think Rob should play every night for 12 minutes. I do think Rob or Josh, every single night, should play 12 minutes. And maybe it's just one of them, the other guy gets a DNP. But talking about scouting and how these teams are figuring some stuff out, there's no way the Minnesota Timberwolves don't go into every single game knowing, like, tonight's a big night or tonight's a little night. You know what I mean? Like, One of those guys should, I don't know if anyone remembered him playing last night, but I actually thought Christian Koloko for the Lakers gave him 12 really good minutes. He was a plus 12. He didn't score. He didn't have a shot attempt. He had 2 blocks and 6 rebounds. And he was the 9th man in the rotation. I am over now 8-man rotations. It has to be 9 to me every single night. Now, it can be Rob playing 8 minutes against the Lakers game that was never really out of question, but I think they need to, because you said something to Britt, I think, earlier this week. They kind of need to know who they can trust come playoff time. And this is all built, even though on game 26, about what's going to happen in April and May. Right. And I think one of those guys is going to have to at least be relied upon or counted on. And now that you've settled the foundation of this new version of the house with this defense that it won't be the best defense for the remaining 60 games, but they should be top 5 as long as everyone's healthy. Start to experiment a little more. Like now you have the layer. Now give Rob a little longer leash. Let Josh do some crazy shit. That to me is like the bare minimum moving forward, is that every night they should have 9 guys that take their warm-ups off. But not Joe Ingles, because he has the best job in the world right now. He's making $3.3 million to wear a Jaden hat and a Wolves jumpsuit and drink lattes. That is awesome. Shout out to Joe.
Last thing, let's talk about this Wolves schedule ahead. It's about to get a lot harder. It's not going to be 4 days. I just had 4 days off this week, 3 days off.
I love that. Oh my God. 1 game a week is fantastic.
Right. Yeah, me too. But things are about to change. The schedule is going to get more difficult. I asked Rudy about that last night, and here's what Rudy had to say.
You guys have a pretty difficult schedule coming up. And teams that are higher in the standings and some of this have been. Are you looking forward to this as like an opportunity and test?
I think our biggest competition is ourselves. We look forward. We love the challenge. Playing great teams, but in regular season, especially, it's always been ourselves. Biggest competition, regardless of who we play. We know that we can lose to anyone or beat anyone, so it's really about our mindset.
Kyle, I tweeted out that clip last night, and somebody replied, "Dude looks like Anakin Skywalker in that check."
That's nicer than what was said about me when I was on vacation. Anywho, I didn't really know that, because I just kind of gave up on schedule talk, or looking at it, because it's like, oh my God, the Wolves have the Blazers coming up twice, and it's like, oh, that was bad. Yeah. But they do. They do. You're listening to this probably on Saturday, maybe Sunday morning, but it does get interesting with at a San Antonio Spurs team that, for whatever reason, you just haven't really matched up well against.
I think that's a bad match. I'm curious. Sorry. Go ahead. Read off the schedule. My bad.
No. But yeah, let's go through it. But they show up in San Antonio tomorrow. They get a little more sleep, I would imagine, not like the last time when they flew in at 5 a.m. But then next Thursday, an emotional kind of return for Karl-Anthony Towns against a really good offensively Knicks team, Golden State, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio again, Oklahoma City, Boston, and then it wraps up with maybe the toughest matchup in the league, our Detroit Pistons on January 4th. So it is like I said preseason earlier, right? Maybe you got to beat up on teams second night of a back-to-back, banged up Lakers team, Warriors team, whatever. But they found themselves. They have an identity. And now Chris Finch loves to use this analogy of building skills, or building blocks, stacking skills. Now you need to stack like components of this team starting tomorrow in San Antonio, but it's going to get a lot harder. Like you said, if they are still the top defensive rating come, let's say Christmas, which is like 5-6 games from now, that's like Kendrick Perkins NBA jump type stuff. Like, because now you're talking about doing it against what I think is some of the best, especially offensive teams in the league. So it's going to get much harder. They found themselves a little bit, but you go 1-4 in this stretch, and some of this stuff won't really matter.
I can't wait to watch Kendrick Perkins NBA jump.
Hey, that's my guy. Shout out to Perk. That is my guy.
NBA jump. Is that what that show's called now? I
hate you.
Just kidding. I do think I agree with Rudy that the biggest competition is themselves. That sounds like a cliche,
Yeah,
but
that's a fact, though.
Yeah, like if you watch this Wolves team all the time, like their biggest competition is themselves. Though two things can be true. The competition is going to go up, and playing against the Victor Wembanyama team is very different, than obviously than what they're seeing most nights. And we saw that the last time they played them, and again, it was the back-to-back. You're right on all that, but like that was like maybe the game the Wolves looked most rudderless all year. I thought was against the Spurs. Could be the back-to-back. I'm interested to see on Sunday. Then you got the Cat game, which like even emotions outside of that. That's going to be like an interesting, like, how do you match this? Like, is Rudy going to guard Cat? Like, is that how that
game is going to be so good. Like, let's just call a spade like that. You're talking about real basketball stuff. I'm talking about off, but I just think that game, both of them make that's going to be.
For sure. Yeah. It's both parts.
If you're looking to, I'm not trying to sell tickets for the team, but if you're looking for a holiday gift for a loved one, I mean, Wolves, Knicks on a Thursday, Cats return on TNT. That game is going to be awesome to lead up. But also, I've been thinking about that too, is like, how will they, think about this question. How will the Minnesota Timberwolves defend Karl-Anthony Towns? And I don't mean like in the media after he says something crazy. Like, how will they defend him on the court? It's going to be wild. So, but they do. Trae Young, Karl-Anthony Towns, Victor Wembanyama, Luka Doncic. Like, it's
the Warriors again.
It's coming now. And Cade Cunningham.
I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. Like, I was saying this to Britt before the game last night. Once I was actually looking forward to this Lakers game. Like, I thought the Lakers, like Reeves was going to be back, LeBron was going to play. Like, as a team that they could reasonably beat when at full strength, but like would have been a competitive game, and obviously ended up being like what just you said, it ended up being feeling like a preseason game. Like, I'm excited to watch the Wolves play teams that are going to test them.
Exactly.
And I'm excited, to point out like this tested them and that's hurt them. But I'm also like, one of these teams, they're going to have answers for the Cat thing or the Golden State thing and put them away. Like, we're going to learn a lot more about the team over this stretch. And for me, like that's my favorite part of this whole thing. So we will see what comes up in the schedule ahead. But I do agree with Rudy. Their biggest competition in the schedule ahead as well is going to be themselves, for all the reasons that we spent the first 80 minutes of this podcast talking about. Kyle, let's wrap this up by doing probably one of our final NFL prize picks of the year. I guess maybe we could probably spill it over into the playoffs or whatever. Yeah. But I was looking it up this morning. I'll quickly just tell you what my two were. First, throw in that Patrick Mahomes free square for Sunday. Yes, if he throws for one passing yard, you get that. My other two are just kind of jumping on the second-year wide receiver who seems to be ascending. Kind of like, I just think Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to really finish this season, and already is at a really high level. I have him having more than 65.5 receiving yards, and then old wide receiver Adam Thielen having more than 4.5 receptions. He has 17 receptions over the last 2 weeks since he kind of like re-entered the rotation. Or the rotation, basketball mind, came back from injury. What two do you have? We'll have a 5-leg one on this because let's the Mahomes.
Listen, I see the bankroll up there in the top right. Like, let's push submit on one of these and try to win some money. Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers.
Okay,
more than 14.5 rushing yards. He's hit that number 4 straight games. Bryce Young kind of like Jaden McDaniels has his confidence back. Dallas is still a good pass rush, even though the Cowboys suck. And I would imagine he gets out in the open field a couple times. So more than 14.5 rushing yards for Bryce Young. And then also quick, Dane. Do you know who's starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints this weekend?
The Rayner guy or whatever.
Jake Hayner.
Hayner.
Sounds like a guy that used to write at Canis with me. He's going to have to check down a lot because he's not
I haven't
good.
found the Bryce Young one yet, but I'll get it.
You'll add it. Alvin Kamara over more than 30.5 receiving yards. I just think a quarterback who I've never heard of before, and I follow a lot of football, is just going to be throwing checkdowns to the probably best player on the Saints. So Alvin Kamara, more than 30.5 receiving yards in a game that they'll probably be trailing most of the time against the Commanders.
Love it. So that would be 5 legs because we have the free Mahomes square in there. So yeah, if you want to do this, would pay 19.5 to 1. So even if
that's
you just
2 new windows from your home improvement.
Exactly. So $5 to win 97.50. Again, this is just a fun way. Maybe your fantasy season is literally over. And you want something, to have on the line like you do with fantasy. It is daily fantasy. I would recommend trying out Prize Picks this weekend. You can go to prizepicks.com to look at the board there, or download the Prize Picks app to see if there are any that you like more than Kyle and I do. And if you do that, use promo code Dane when you sign up, because when you place your first $5 lineup, they will credit your account with $50 free dollars in promotion funds. So yeah, that's I think that's all I got. Kyle, did we miss anything?
No, I mean, anytime you play the Lakers, I'm just, again, watching last night, glad that Minnesota is no longer holding back D'Angelo Russell. But a really exciting couple games coming up. And yeah, I think that's like a perfect way to put a bow on this for this week and these last couple weeks. And the first, 25 or so games is that, I just remember Finch saying in Portland, we got to find our identity. They have an identity now. Mm-hmm. I think that should make it a little easier. I think they have a more comfortable locker room. Guys kind of get their roles a little more, but they're still, not to beat this to death, like a lot of meat on the bone. Like I would love to see Dante DiVincenzo have one of those nights, right? Like I would love to see Mike kind of get back on the scoring sheet a little bit. And then the biggest thing of all is just, can we get Ant unlocked again of this ceiling he's kind of hit? So there's a ton of good teams coming up, but a ton of good things that this team could try to do. And now you're going to see it against what I would say are the best of the best teams right now coming. Mm-hmm. So between now and Christmas, it's going to be really, really fun. But shout out to everyone that's listening to this. And because I just said Christmas, I always want to plug this in. Holiday season, traveling, whatever. Reach out to the people that you care about, that you love. Holidays are a great time, but it's also some of the toughest times if you're going through stuff, you're lonely, or whatever. So check in on those that you care about. And we always appreciate those that check in on us and that support us in what we do here.
He's Kyle Theige. You can follow him on Twitter at Kyle Theige. He's also occasionally on Flagrant Howls over with Phil Mackey at Score North. If you're looking for some extra Wolves podcasting over the holiday, Score North is churning out a bunch of stuff too. I mean, we'll continue going. Next week will be I think a heavyweight golf forecast. Mm-hmm. We'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Kyle will be back on Friday, and then I guess just thinking ahead on Christmas week, we'll do something. I think Christmas is on Wednesday. We'll do an episode on Monday and Friday of that week. I will not be covering the game on Christmas Day or anything like that. But yeah, still plenty more episodes in December to come. But Kyle, I appreciate you joining me again on a Saturday morning. So we had an actual game to talk about, and not that Warriors back to back. Until I guess the next episode will be Monday with Jace. Until Monday with Jace, he's Kyle. I'm Dane.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.